Welcome. Today we are unpacking a beloved television classic from a completely new angle. We're going to explore a really radical theory that might just change the way you watch your very next marathon. Because we're arguing that Chandler Bing, yeah, not Ross, not Rachel, but Chandler is the true invisible protagonist of the hit sitcom Friends.
Okay, let's dive into this, because at first glance, I know that sounds entirely impossible. For decades, the universally accepted idea has been that the show revolves entirely around Ross and Rachel. I mean, we've basically been conditioned to think their on-again, off-again romance is the absolute center of the universe for this friend group. But what if we've been looking at this from the wrong angle all along?
Seriously, just consider the contrast between these characters for a second. Ross and Rachel give us loud, plot-driving chaos. They get the wildly dramatic relationships and the massive life-changing moments. Rachel has this highly visible character arc, and Ross is frequently driving the major storylines. But juxtapose that loud, plot-heavy nature against Chandler. Chandler is this quiet, foundational presence. Main characters aren't always the loudest people in the room, right? Sometimes they are the stabilizing force whose personal journey quietly shapes literally everything around them. I want you to genuinely consider this paradigm-shifting question. If Chandler suddenly disappeared from Friends, would the show even work? It's a massive knowledge gap we are about to fill right now. Because when you truly analyze the group dynamic, the answer reveals that Chandler was hiding in plain sight as the main character the entire time. Moving into our first major argument here, the group's hidden anchor. Chandler acts as the unseen structural glue of this entire group. Whenever major conflict appears, he almost always becomes the central stabilizing force holding everyone's orbit steady.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly how deep those connections go. Chandler provides a truly unique, foundational support system to every single member of the group. Think about it. He's Ross's longtime best friend. He eventually becomes Monica's husband. Rachel constantly turns to him for supportive advice. Phoebe is always bouncing her weird, grounding energy right off his humor. He is connected to everyone in a way that actively holds the whole dynamic together.
And the deeper you look, the more absolutely essential his role becomes, especially with Joey. Honestly, without Chandler, Joey's story looks completely different. Chandler literally gives Joey a place to live, he helps pay the bills, and he financially and emotionally supports Joey through years of brutal acting struggles and countless rejections. Joey's entire storyline fundamentally relies on Chandler's constant presence.
Then, of course, there's his relationship with Monica, and this contrast is just fascinating. Ross and Rachel's relationship is famous, for sure, but let's be honest, it is totally defined by chaos and drama. On the flip side, Monica and Chandler represent something incredibly rare in sitcoms: genuine growth, trust, and partnership. What started as a massive surprise twist in London quickly became the steady, emotional bedrock of the whole show.
Their partnership actively forces both of these characters to grow. Chandler learns to embrace real vulnerability, and Monica learns to relax her intense need for control. Because they make each other better, they create the strongest and most mature storyline in the series, which ends up placing Chandler right at the emotional center. Now let's talk about the ultimate character arc. Because to be a true protagonist, you have to undergo a transformation, right? Well, Chandler's transformation is the most dramatic and complete in the entire series. Just think about where he starts. When most people think of Chandler, they immediately think of perfectly timed one-liners. But look at his actual starting point. Back in the early seasons, he is deeply insecure. He struggles heavily with commitment, he intensely fears rejection because of his parents' difficult relationship, and he actively uses jokes and sarcasm as emotional armor. He is actually a profoundly broken character at the very beginning.
Now, what's really interesting here is how Chandler's mindset compares to the rest of the group early on. Ross is already a successful paleontologist. Monica is highly ambitious and determined. Rachel is actively discovering her newfound independence. But Chandler genuinely believes he doesn't deserve happiness. That isn't just some quirky personality trait. That is the absolute perfect starting point for a massive character arc just waiting to happen.
Let's move to and see how this builds across the timeline of the show. He goes from being terrified of emotional vulnerability in the early seasons to that massive turning point in London that finally opens him up to trust and partnership. By the later seasons, he's evolved enough to actually leave a secure career to pursue meaningful work. And by the finale, the guy who was paralyzed by the fear of commitment becomes a totally devoted husband and a loving father.
In many ways, Chandler actually follows the classic hero's journey framework. It's wild. He starts with these deep emotional wounds. He faces major relationship and career challenges. He learns super difficult lessons about vulnerability. And finally, he transforms into someone way stronger than he ever imagined. His growth feels earned because we, the audience, watched every single awkward mistake and fear along the way. These aren't just funny side stories. These are the actual milestones of a true protagonist.
So, we've established his structural importance and his massive narrative arc. Now let's look at why viewers connect so deeply with Chandler, making him the relatable hero of the group.
Compare him to the rest of the gang. The others have these highly aspirational traits and careers. I mean, we are talking about brilliant scientists, high-level fashion executives, and professional chefs. Chandler, however, brings real insecurity, self-doubt, and the tendency to use humor to hide his discomfort. He is deeply, fundamentally human.
There's a quote from our source material that captures this perfectly. It says, "Most viewers aren't brilliant scientists, but many people understand insecurity." And isn't that true? We all fundamentally understand using a quick joke to deflect from our deepest insecurities. It makes him easily the most grounded character in the entire cast. Here is the undeniable truth. Chandler's flaws make him relatable, but his growth makes him inspiring. And that unique combination, being flawed enough that we can actually see ourselves in him, but growing enough to genuinely inspire us, is the exact definition of a memorable main character.
Which leads us right into the true heart of Friends. Because beneath all the jokes and the coffee shop hangouts, this is really a story about what it means to connect and belong.
If you strip everything away, the core themes of the show are all about finding people who accept you, overcoming your deepest fears, and growing into the person you actually want to become. Now ask yourself, which character embodies those themes more completely than anyone else? It's Chandler, for sure. So the crucial point is this. The show succeeded because all 6 characters mattered, absolutely. Ross and Rachel provided the drama, Monica provided the structure, Joey provided the laughter, Phoebe provided the unpredictability. But Chandler quietly carried the emotional soul of the entire series. He was the glue holding them all together, the character with the most earned growth and the most relatable human being on screen. The invisible protagonist was literally hiding in plain sight. The funniest guy in the room was actually the hero of the story all along. Which leaves us with this final lingering question. Was Chandler the real main character of Friends? Next time you sit down to watch an episode, pay close attention to his journey. We really want to know what you think. Does someone else deserve the title? Share your thoughts, and definitely keep this perspective in mind the next time you drop by Central Perk. Thanks for joining me as we unpacked all this today, and we'll catch you next time.